Hi and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave and this is episode 1272B and today's date is May 5th, 2017 and the title of the episode is This is Not Going to End Well If the Deep State Gets Its Way. Let's get into the economic collapse, political and geopolitical news. Now we know that the Republicans got their health care bill through the House, and we have to remember that there was no score, it was not read, and it looks like this was the same type of passage that they did with Obamacare. And again, this is not a benefit to the people. We have to remember this was written by insurance companies to benefit the insurance company, to benefit certain corporations, individuals. It was not to benefit the people. And we can see with some of the information in there, there is a reduction of taxes that were put into Obamacare, but the Senate is looking at it saying, we don't know if we're going to pass this. Actually, the Senate is looking to write their own health care bill now, and we'll have to see if this actually gets through the Senate. Most likely it will not, but we will see what occurs once it reaches there and they start looking at it and voting on it. Now, we see right now that the health care bill, well, it will allow young adults to stay on their parents' health plan until age 26. So it maintains some of Obamacare's most popular provisions. Now we have to remember, this is more like a rewrite of Obamacare. Some people call it Obamacare Light. And the bill would let states opt out of Obamacare's mandate that insurers charge the same rates on sick and healthy people. It would also allow states to opt out of Obamacare's requirement that insurers cover 10 essential health benefits, such as maternity care and prescription drug costs. The measure would provide states with $100 billion, largely to fund high-risk pools to provide insurance to the sickest patients. The bill would also provide $8 billion over 5 years to help those with pre-existing conditions to pay for insurance. It would let insurers mark up premiums by 30% for those who have had lapse in insurance coverage of about 2 months or more. Insurers want a provision they had long sought, the ability to charge older Americans up to 5 times more than young people. So those people who are older right now, those premiums are going to skyrocket. And again, when you look at healthcare, this is going to be focused on a certain group, and the other group is going to get hurt, just like Obamacare. Now, there were winners and losers in this, and we can see the biggest winner are the insurance companies. They always are. And we can see that from all of this, when we look at this, we can see that the majority of what this bill does, it removes the tax hikes from Obamacare. For example, the Obamacare individual mandate tax, which hits 8 million Americans each year, that is going to be removed. The Obamacare employer mandate tax, together with repeal of the individual mandate tax repeal, this is a $270 billion tax cut. Obamacare's HSA withdrawal tax, this is a $100 million tax cut. Obamacare's 10% excise tax on small businesses with indoor tanning services, this is a $600 million tax cut. The Obamacare health insurance tax, this is a $145 billion tax cut. And it goes on and on and on with all these different tax cuts. And it pretty much gets rid of the tax hikes that Obama put in there to pay for a lot of this and to bring taxes into the government. Because you have to remember, the government is in trouble right now because it cannot sustain the debt. It doesn't have the revenue coming in from the tax receipts. Now, Kunstler, well, he exposes the real problem in American healthcare, because what he's saying is that the so-called providers, doctors, hospitals, insurance companies, they never post the cost of any service. You really don't understand what the cost is until you receive the bill. And it should be like anything else that we have today. How much does it cost to do this procedure? How much is it for this? But this is not what happens. Because what happens is the doctors, the hospitals, the insurance companies, they make up an amount and then they haggle, they negotiate over the cost. Now, under the current system, A hospital can bill you $6,000 to stitch up a cut finger, mitigate a bee sting, or wind an ace bandage around a sprained ankle, and you're sure not to learn the cost of the treatment until you receive the bill in the mail. And this is a huge problem. And from everything that we're looking at right now, the benefit, the entire healthcare bill, again, does not really benefit the people. And if it really does benefit the people, and I said this before, everyone in government will need to replace what they have, and I understand they have really nice health insurance, and they'll have to replace it with this new insurance law. Now, with Obamacare, they decided to exempt themselves. They exempted the staffers. Why? And we as a people should demand, if this is what you want us to accept, you have to accept it, no questions asked. But guess what? They're not going to do this. Now, Rand Paul is out there, and he said the House Freedom Caucus made the bill a lot less bad. And he says it's still bad. But what I'm still concerned about, he said, is this is the first time that the Republicans have affirmatively put their stamp of approval on a program where federal money, taxpayer money, is paid to insurance companies. And it boggles the mind how that became a Republican idea. He goes, I really want to repeal it. I just don't want to replace the Obamacare Light or another federal program. The bill offers people who won't get subsidies anymore, Santa Claus Light. Rand also said, I want everybody in the individual market to be protected against pre-existing conditions by getting into the group market and let the market forces work. It can work, but the current bill acknowledges that it doesn't work, and then we just subsidize the insurance companies, which I think is absolutely deplorable. And he's absolutely right. This new insurance bill is just a big rewrite of what we had before. And all the taxes and everything behind the scenes, well, that's, again, not going to benefit the people in the long run when it has to do with health insurance. And we can see right now that the government, maybe they shouldn't be involved in health insurance at this point, because we can see if they're going to be involved, they need to separate themselves from the insurance companies. They have to separate themselves from the masters, because you can see from all these bills, they're being written for a certain group, and it's not the people. It's being written for the insurance companies, for other corporations. And this is the main problem of all of this. Now, in its 7th CIA leak, Wikileaks has just revealed the user manual of a CIA hacking tool known as Archimedes, which is purportedly used to attack computers inside a local area network. The CIA tool works by redirecting a target's web page search to a CIA server, which serves up a web page that looks exactly like the original page they were expecting to be served, but which contains malware. And the only way to figure out that you receive this malware, or to understand that you're in a different location, is to look at the page source. And if you don't look at this, then you will never know. And what Archimedes does, well, it allows the system to insert a false web server response that redirects the target's web browser to a server that will exploit their system, all while appearing like it's completely normal. And it allows them to hijack the computer system. And from everything that we've been looking at with the CIA, they have the ability to basically spy on every single person, to corrupt everyone's computer, and they've done it. They've taken over the mobile devices, they've taken over the computer system, and this is all designed not to stop terrorists, it's to spy on the American people, to find out what they are up to blackmail government officials. That's what this is all about. Now, the FBI director, James Comey, he is going after Wikileaks, and so is the Department of Justice. And they're going after Wikileaks because they're saying that, listen, it's a threat to national security. And they're saying that Wikileaks does not engage in journalism. They don't have the First Amendment right, freedom of the press. And Comey stated, in my view, a huge portion of Wikileaks' activities has nothing to do with legitimate news gathering, informing the public, commenting on important controversies, but is simply about releasing classified information to damage the United States of America. And we need to understand what the First Amendment is and what freedom of the press is. And the purpose of freedom of the press, the clause that's in the First Amendment, was to keep an eye on people in power and maintain a check on corruption. The Supreme Court Justice Black and Douglas explained in their concurring opinion in New York Times Company versus United States back in 1971. In the First Amendment, the Founding Fathers gave the free press the protection it must have to fulfill its essential role in our democracy. The press was to serve the governed, not the governors. The government's power to censor the press was abolished so that the press would remain forever free to censor the government. The press was protected so that it could bear the secrets of the government and inform the people. And what is WikiLeaks doing? They're doing exactly that. They are basically unmasking the government. They are bearing the secrets of the government, and they are informing the people. And you can see the government, they don't want this to happen. The government, they hate the Constitution. They dislike the freedom and the rights of the people. And this is why they're always attacking it. Because this government is not for the people. A government that is truly for the people and working for the people, they would not have a worry in the world. They wouldn't care if there was freedom of the press or freedom of speech. Only when a government becomes so corrupt that it's looking out for their own best interest and reporting to a higher authority where they're sneaking around, spying on people, having backroom deals, pushing certain agendas, that's when they don't like freedom of the press or freedom of speech or the rights of the people, because it interrupts everything they're trying to do. And everything they're trying to do is not for the people. Now, out in France, we can see that things are really heating up in the elections. This is coming up on May 7th. And we can see right now that France's Macron, well, he is definitely with the deep state. He's definitely with the central banks, because he's already spouting out the same exact thing that they've been spouting out for quite a while now. He's going to stop fake news. He's going to regulate the internet, which means censor. And he's going to stay with the EU. He's going to work with the EU and have open borders. This is everything that they've been talking about for a very long time. But we know that there's this document out there, and a leaker released these new images about, well, his offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands. And a lot of people saying that it's in the Caribbean island, and there is a correction. Actually, they're in the Cayman Islands. And we see right now that they put out this picture of the documents, and they're saying there's a lot more of these documents where, yes, he does have these offshore accounts. Now, what's very interesting about all of this is, again, there's no electronic voting in the French election. They're going to be using the clear boxes with paper ballots. And we know the deep state, they're worried about who is going to win here. And all of a sudden, the Islamic State has called upon the Muslims in France to kill candidates and burn down polling stations during the election. Now, they will only do this because, remember, the Islamic State, it's not even the Islamic State, it's their paid individuals in the country that are prepared and ready to shut down the election if Macron is not winning. If he is losing, we will probably see riots, we'll probably see the police come out, and they'll probably call to shut down the elections. And we'll have to watch this very, very carefully as we go into the May 7th elections. We see Putin had a meeting with Angela Merkel. He's saying that the Minsk deal is pretty much dead. He kind of blamed the whole entire situation on Angela Merkel, saying that Kiev, Germany, and the rest, they did nothing to help the process. Actually, they did nothing, and that's why it didn't work at all, because they had a completely different agenda. Now, the Pentagon is going to revise the Afghan war plan. They're going to present it to Trump, and in the next month, he's going to look at the plan, and it's either going to send troops to Afghanistan or he's going to come up with something different, and this is something that we are watching. Now, Rex Tillerson, he is meeting with the 10-member Association of the Southeast Asian Nations, that's ASEAN, and he is expecting these nations to help with the problem with North Korea, because all of these nations, well, they have diplomatic relations with North Korea, and 5 have embassies in North Korea. So we can see right now that Duterte, he is on the board there, and we're going to see how this whole thing plays out. Now, we know that the United States government central bankers, they said that troops were going to stay in Iraq even when the Islamic State were completely destroyed and defeated in the country. And this was before Trump was even in office. This was going back many years. But the Iraqi Prime Minister, al-Abadi, well, he's denying this, saying no, the U.S. combat troops will not remain in this country. Once the Islamic State is defeated, the U.S. combat troops will be leaving our country. We will allow a couple advisors to stay, but the rest must leave. Now, this is completely opposite of what James Mattis is saying, because he is saying that no, that they want to maintain a modest U.S. military presence in Mosul after the defeat of the Islamic State. And Abadi's saying no, we want all the troops to be removed from our country. Now, the reason why the United States wants to keep troops in each one of these countries is to maintain control, because they want to make sure that these countries are using the dollar on their natural resources, which is oil. And we see right now this is what they're most afraid of, and this is why they need to make sure they keep troops in each one of these countries, because people in the country, they don't want the puppet government. They want to take back their countries. They want control of their governments, and most likely they're not going to be using the dollar on their natural resources. And this is why the U.S. would like to keep troops in each one of these countries. Now, we see a Russian heavy bomber. They performed a routine flight near Alaska, and we have to remember Russia and Alaska, they're very, very close to each other. And of course the corporate media is making a really big deal that a Russian bomber is near Alaska. Well, when a United States bomber flies near Alaska, it's near Russia. But we can see right now that the Russian bomber, well, it performed a routine flight. It was in neutral waters, and it wasn't really a big deal. The corporate media likes to really push this out there like it's a really big deal. We see right now that Libya, well, they have a secret United States base in the south part of Libya. And this is in Al-Y. And this is located in the oasis in the southernmost part of Libya. And because of the Freedom of Information Act, the documentation shows that as far back as 2015, this base was established. Now, does Trump know about this? Because he says the United States should have nothing to do with Libya. He wants the troops out of there and leave it up to the Libyan people to decide what happens to their country. And maybe he was not brought in on this secret base, but it is there in Libya. And remember, the United States government central bankers, they have bases in all these countries. And in Syria, they have 2. The French have 1. And of course, I'm sure it's not being shown that these are the bases that the United States has in these areas, because, again, they built them in a sovereign country without the permission of the elected leader. Now, out in Syria, we can see Russia, Syria, and Turkey and Iran. They are creating the de-escalation zones. They are going to control these de-escalation zones, and they signed the agreement, and Trump is going along with this. And it goes into effect at around midnight tonight. And once it goes into effect, what it means is that the United States and the coalition will not be able to fly their planes over these areas. Now, the memorandum designates 4 areas in Syria as safe zones, where armed groups opposing the Syrian government are not supporting a jihadist agenda would be protected from attacks. They are expected not to allow terrorist groups use them as safe havens. Now, the largest safe zone is in northern Syria, covering Idlib, as well as parts of Latakia, Aleppo, and Hama, and this is according to the Russian military. The second covers the parts of Homs Governorate, where around 180,000 civilians live. The third zone encompasses the Damascus neighborhood of eastern Ghouta and a small region controlled by the terrorist group al-Nusra Front. The last one is in parts of southern Syria bordering Jordan. Now, we can see right now that this is going to be a huge problem for the deep state, because they will not be able to fly planes, and they're making it very, very clear that they will go after any plane or anything that is in these areas, and they will bring it down. It is a no-fly zone for the United States and the coalition forces. And if there are terrorist groups in any of these areas, they will be eradicated. No questions asked, period. I mean, they're very clear on this. And what we're seeing is that the deep state, well, they're going to continue to undermine the efforts of Russia's de-escalation plan. They're going to try to sabotage it like they've done every single time to any type of peace plan. But I believe that Russia is prepared for this. But what we need to understand is that there are reports and talks that there are forces being ramped up in Jordan, and North Korea is kind of like a diversion where they're keeping all eyes off of what's happening in Jordan and in Syria, where they're going to try to make one last push. Now, we'll have to see if this is true or not. And we understand that June 1st, this is when the peace talks are going to start. They already have their de-escalation zones, and we're going to have to see how the deep state reacts to all of this, because we can see if the deep state makes their move and they make this huge push, this is all not going to end well, because right now they will be coming up against Russian soldiers in these areas, because we can see that the deep state at this point, they have no way out of this. They need to fight, or that's it. They are done. So we're going to have to watch this situation very, very carefully, because if they make a major push, this is not going to end well at all. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.